ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا فمن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ثم أما بعد. السلام عليكم. Uh-oh.
Walaikum salam. Somebody saying it.
Alhamdulillah. How are you, Ismail?
Oh, doing well. Weathered the storm.
Yeah. Man, your wit is irresistible, mashallah. I think we're all, weathering the storm, both literally and figuratively. Mashallah. But no, I was thinking that today we could spend some time brainstorming because I want us to kind of think as a group about what we could do to bring in kind of a similar energy to the energy we had on Monday, evenings. I don't want this to be a session in which I just kind of speak into my camera for 30 minutes. We've always enjoyed a very enriching kind of bi-directional exchange, whether it was people asking questions and us discussing those questions in groups, whether we were kind of studying things that tended to provoke, a lot of discussion. I still want that to be a part of this space. And for a while, I thought my role was something of kind of like, let me just check in from week to week on Zoom, just to maintain some of the momentum, God willing, so that when we get back in the space, it won't be like we were away for a very long time. Now, that idea of getting back in the space is seeming more and more unsure and perhaps more and more distant. So if we're going to kind of recreate, what we had in terms of a classroom environment, it just has to be with Zoom. It just has to be with the format and the platform that we have at our disposal. So I want to just kind of talk to people today and see what could we study, or what could we read? What are folks interested in? Something that would promote a lot of discussion, and that people would find helpful, beneficial, useful, and also inspiring, inshallah. So just what are you guys thinking about?
I can throw an idea out there. No guarantees that it's the right one, but
yeah, sure. Throw something out.
Yeah, that best for last means we have to start somewhere. So, I mean, I think perhaps it'd be helpful to have some sort of written forum as well. I'm not thinking in terms of literal chat forum like you might see on, say, Reddit, but something where folks, if they're willing to put in that extra work beforehand, can say, all right, this is a question that's on my mind, or this is something that I've read about, and would like to come and prepare either some remarks or some questions. I think that that comes to mind because at least in a few of these sessions these last few months, there have been instances where there's been, pin drop silence. And I think part of that is because it's tough to come up with something on the fly. But if there's an opportunity to kind of dump people's thoughts into over the course of a week and then revisit those.
I agree. No, I think that would be great if it was kind of in preparation for our meeting, we could already have some some topics that we knew we were going to discuss. I think folks might find that more engaging because, again, as you mentioned, it would relieve the pressure of coming up with something on the spur of the moment, about which we could converse. Right. Hmm.
Of course, to push back against the idea as well, it does remove some of the organic feeling that I think we had in the class session or in the in-person sessions. It might be a
Yes.
compromise that we're willing to make, but worth at least voicing that trade-off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I want. I mean, I want something that will get people talking a little bit. I think, that for me, that is what made the Monday night sessions unique and special. Is that I felt like our group, for me as a teacher, it was more of a group in which we shared, and there was a lot of exchange, and I learned a lot, and I took home lots that I wanted to read about, to research, that I would write about, that I would actually travel and talk about on weekends. The genesis of a lot of those ideas for me was Monday night, and I feel like that's been missing in my own kind of scholarly activity. That I don't have this laboratory in which I can you know be challenged, have some ideas challenged, have some ideas presented to me, and I want to see if we can retain some of that on Monday evenings, while at the same time, still being instructional, where we can be, offering, positive content, where we can. I'm not absolving myself of my responsibility as a teacher to come in with things that I think are important for people to learn. I'm just saying, rather than talking myself in a kind of soliloquy for 50 minutes, 60 minutes, every week, I think I know it's more enjoyable for me to have folks with whom I can talk. So I'm just looking for what ideas, what perhaps even what books, if there are recommendations, what subjects in this very unique, moment in our collective existence. What are folks really interested in? From a from a uh, from a content point of view. You know. Well, okay.
Maybe if you throw out some like suggestions or some titles or categories, we could
Mm. I
think
mean,
of the different options.
yeah, I think different suggestions, different titles, different categories. I'm trying to think. I mean, me personally, I love um, books like um, books that give kind of aphorisms, and we've done those in the past. We did Taj al-Arus in the past, which is like the Bridegroom's Crown. It was a book by Ibn Ata'illah and Dr. Sherman Jackson, a dear teacher and mentor of mine, translated it as Sufism for non-Sufis. But the reason I like um, when I'm studying, in addition to my life, in addition to teaching, in addition to all of those things, the reason that I really like books like that is that every hikmah or every aphorism, every wise statement is a lesson unto itself. So I don't, if I miss a week or I don't. There's really kind of minimal preparation that I have to engage from week to week, and that every statement, every you know uh, class is kind of a unique and independent module. I think that when I'm in and out of classes, that's always much more. That's always preferable to a thematic class that lesson two built upon lesson one, and lesson three built upon lesson one and two. Um, so I like those kinds of texts, and of course, with those kinds of texts, kind of like what we do at Ted Leaf on Tuesday nights, there is a certain kind of repetition. There is a certain kind of redundancy, right? You tend to find the same issues being highlighted, being emphasized um, over and over again. So arrogance will come up, pride will come up, sincerity will come up, worship will come up, charity will come up. The thing about it is usually those things are repeated in a kind of incremental repetition in the sense that, the repetition is a reflection of the fact that these are things we're always struggling with. Right? If you look at even the core themes and messages of faith, you really have a handful of kind of core messaging that the prophet, peace be upon him, would emphasize from, sermon to sermon, public address to public address. It's thinking about those things more and more deeply each time and applying what we learn to ourselves more carefully, each time. So the redundancy is not as frustrating to me as it is to other people, but I do worry that people whose attention span is connected to they're more attentive to things that are new, things that are unprecedented, things that they haven't heard before. I'm also sensitive to that too. So I don't want to keep doing the same things, but so that's but that is one suggestion. I think that would work well. Sierra was something that was good. I think we covered it, in a very kind of interactive fashion. It was selected readings, and we would come in and discuss kind of together what we read. But we did that fairly recently. Yeah, I'm myself just thinking. I don't know. Does anyone else have any suggestions? Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to stop meeting on Monday evenings, but I may need some time myself to just maybe, maybe this week or something. I just need some time just to really come up with something because I feel like the collective, battery is getting low in terms of energy. And the people that still tune in, um, I'm really, really appreciative and I'm really thankful. And I hope to offer them something that um, they regard, as useful and beneficial. Maybe I just need to think about it, a little more deeply and look in my own library, pray about it some more, think about, our class and think about, the times in which we're living and, you know, come up with something, but because right now I just feel, of course, I mean, I could always, find something to read. I could always find something to study. Um, but I want to feel like the class is with me. I want to feel like there's some collective buy-in and not just like I'm just kind of doing my own thing. I don't know if that makes any sense. Hmm. Something, Ismail, that's really interesting about that suggestion. Um, I have actually never seen Star Wars.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Hey, I'll pray for you.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about it that's so crazy is, Star Wars is one of those film franchises that if you haven't seen a Star Wars movie, either you've been living under a rock or like, that's one of those, I would say, if someone were asking me for a list of films that you must watch these in order to be culturally literate in America. Star Wars would probably be at the top of the list. It would be one of the films at the top of the list. And I've never seen Star Wars. I mean, I saw it once. I think I saw four. You know, of course you have 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3, and then all of the later stuff. But I think I saw 4 when I was a kid. And it's weird because it's like Star Wars is just eluding me. I always make plans to binge watch it one weekend. Like I'm just gonna sit and watch Star Wars, but I've yet to watch it.
Okay. I mean, there's a first time for everything, so inshallah it goes well.
Inshallah. But no, Star Wars is. I've actually, and this is the thing, how you know this is, what is crazy about something as well known as Star Wars is that I feel like a lot of the storylines I know as well as someone who saw the movie, and I've never seen the movie.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's kind of suffused through our culture.
Yeah. I mean, Star Wars is, it's like, you have to see Star Wars. So maybe that'll be a project for me, for next week to sit and watch at least 4, 5, and 6. I want to get through at least the first 3. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I think I will. Like I said, I've heard so much about Star Wars, and I've read so much about. I don't know how much new information I would actually gain in watching the film. It's the trippiest thing. It's like I haven't seen Star Wars, but I can talk in incredible detail about Star Wars. It's good, but I don't recall seeing the movie, but that could be interesting. That could be interesting.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I have a suggestion.
What's that?
So I think over the years, the class has really, it's kind of evolved and it's turned increasingly towards looking at, I would say, how to be Muslims in, in the modern day world, sort of like not just sticking with the traditional Sira and stuff and things like that, but looking at different aspects of life in, which shapes us and makes us Muslims in sort of a very untraditional society. Things like, sexism, racism, cultural relativism, ethnocentrism, temporal centrism, all these sorts of different forces. And I think I would be interested in us going even further in that direction, just because I think we've been touching on these topics increasingly more and more. So I don't know if there's a text for that, or if that would be something that you would have to more examine more independently. But I think that would be something that's very relevant. And also, I think that's really one of the most unique aspects of this class. It's not something that is addressed in all forums.
I think that would be really cool if we took some of the, but the only way I would be willing to kind of facilitate the discussion is if we took, some concept like that, a concept that is very important to kind of who we are and how we understand ourselves as Muslims now, and say that we'll all come in with something, prepared if we're talking about racism or sexism or ethnocentrism or any number of isms. It seems like everything that we were saying ends in ism, right? So I would so it's clear that you're talking about kind of a genealogy of ideas, right? This ism and that ism, and how we kind of understand how we relate to all of these isms, these various isms as Muslims, and we could kind of explore different ideas. I think from week to week, and bring in an array of sources from contemporary secular sources to religious sources, and just kind of having a discussion about how we feel about those ideas from week to week. that could be really cool. I think, for me, it would also be very risky in terms of, I think I would certainly get something out of that. I think you would certainly get something out of that. I think certain students would certainly get something out of that. I think the risk would be, um, you know, you, um, sometimes, I know for some students, any weekly session, if it's Monday night, if it's Tuesday night, they're not as concerned with its intellectual value as much as they're concerned with kind of its ability to kind of be a source of spiritual rejuvenation and recharge. You know what I'm saying? Some people are just like, I mean, sure, it's good to learn something new, but it's kind of like, okay, Monday nights are a play, Monday nights in that class, it's a place that I'm able to kind of go plug in 30, 45 minutes. Um, I get some kind of relevant reminder about my faith. Um, is not groundbreaking in terms of its, intellectual value. Um, is not, unprecedented in terms of the information being shared, but it's basic religious literacy, but it's being conveyed in a very open-minded way. It's being conveyed in a, very friendly kind of atmosphere. It's being conveyed in, kind of a good environment. And so I'm able to benefit from it more than I would in some other environments. And so for folks like that, I think that kind of session would definitely, I mean, it could certainly still be inspiring, but I think it would skew toward something a little more cerebral, something a little more academic. I'm thinking, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think, of course, not everyone relates to the dean in the same way, but I think the point here is that there's so many forums right now for that kind of thing, especially nowadays, in the lockdown era. I mean, I can think of half a dozen lectures that go on a weekly basis off the top of my head where, there is that more kind of traditional discussion. But I think, right now there is an absence of something like this, of that more intellectual kind of discussion. And this may be the time and the place, especially given that the group has dwindled, so
Mm-hmm.
I think it could work.
I think it could work too, and maybe especially as you mentioned that the numbers are smaller, the group is a bit more intimate. Maybe this would be a good place. I think it would be also kind of interesting to kind of get out there on our own, not kind of outside the protectorate of like a book, outside the protectorate of kind of those well-worn religious ideas, and dealing with something a lot more freestyle. That could be kind of exciting too. You know. Yeah, that could be kind of exciting. So I would say that's definitely it's definitely a top. I would say that's definitely a top idea. It's definitely a top idea. Yeah. And then the other thing too, it's kind of like, mm, so I guess maybe we call it kind of relevant discussion series, and we want to do that for maybe a couple of months. Relevant discussion series. Um, in fact, I think provisionally, I could see myself participating. I think I'd like to do it, but I would say the topics of discussion would need to be generated by the group, though. Even if it's, I mean, like I said, the group has dwindled. So even if it's just a few people in the group, um, I think from week to week, I would be looking for you guys to kind of generate the topic, and then I could prepare something about the topic, from week to week. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I would be happy to help generate some topics beforehand, if that would be helpful to you.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, the only other kind of idea is doing something about Star Wars, and I haven't seen Star Wars, so so this would be. I think this would be kind of cool. I mean, so if you were to uh, thinking about this now from like uh, kind of a curriculum, um, from the vantage point of curriculum. So if you were just off the top of your head to think of like 4 weeks, like four different topics for like the next month.
Sure, I
What
can
would you
like right now just kind of give you what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So I think 1 week definitely dedicated to slavery and colorism.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple of sessions to the issue of women in Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one of those classes could focus on traditional fiqh and how
Mm-hmm.
it's evolved today. And also, I think a class on economic exploitation and capitalism. These different forces, things like I'm thinking of like interest and also insurance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me see. I think ethnocentrism and temporal centrism, how that plays into it. So
Yeah,
I think
I mean,
that's step 4.
that's good. I think if you're comfortable, we can move forward with that. That might be a cool. I mean, we're thinking, now just like the next month, or the next 4 classes, the next 4 topics of discussion. If it ends up being 4, could end up being many more, right? I'm talking about weeks, depending on how the discussions evolve, and how many, I mean, how much, how large the group is that tunes in, how much we have to offer about each respective topic. It could end up being much more than 4, but I think that's great. I'm actually feeling this idea. As long as um, folks come in and they don't have to prepare anything. They don't have to prepare anything in terms of anything written. But as long as folks come in, wanting to talk, because that's really, I didn't realize until COVID um, how important that is to me, to my own, I guess, satisfaction with the course, or with the class, and my own, and my overall kind of, um, um, I guess, course load in terms of my overall teaching. This was one of the places that I could be recharged. I could be, challenged, and I learned a lot, listening to, folks' questions and ideas. And for the last, I guess, many months, maybe 4 months, with COVID, that just hasn't been there in the same way. And I actually feel its absence. I feel like, man, there's been no shortage of teaching for me. But, Monday nights were just a little bit different, than some of the stuff that I did on some other platforms, because there was so much, exchange. So if those topics, if people will actually come in prepared to discuss, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I would add, I don't know the sister's name. I think your ideas are really excellent, because I think what was different about this class compared to others is that you offer a very like holistic view of the topics that come up. It's not just it, as important as traditional Islamic text is, you also bring in like the fiqh perspective, the cultural perspective, you're very acquainted with American scholarship and intellectualism. So that's what keeps me coming to the class, is that it's kind of like a 360, very situated for like, yeah, whatever we are, young adults in Chicago or whatever. So I think all these topics are, I mean, that's what always stood out about this class for me, is that we're not afraid to kind of go into related areas of or vantage points of analysis. And if you want, you know, I don't know how the rest of the class feels, but if you wanted to incorporate like non-Islamic text as part of recommended reading or something, you know, a manageable amount. I always really appreciate when you reference film or you reference scholarship or history in addition to the foundation.
Yeah. Let's do. You know what? I'm feeling like, yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. I think we will. I think we'll do this, and I'll kind of take a not a back seat, or just I guess a passenger seat in letting my sister, who made the recommendation, just kind of like guide me from week to week in terms of, you know, what we're discussing. And I'll try to prepare some, you know, some books, some ideas, some you know, religious teachings where, you know, relevant, cultural anecdotes where, you know, personal anecdotes and cultural references, you know, where relevant. And this could be really cool, huh? I think we should do it. So I guess you guys will have to put me back on the WhatsApp group to make sure I'm getting the notification so that I'm prepared each week for kind of the discussion. And this could turn into a really cool series, man. So yeah, alhamdulillah, I'm feeling good about this, because Lord knows I needed some you know, recharging, man. You know, teaching is such a shared, you know, activity. It's not. It's never just one. It's never just one way. You know, it's the flow of information, the flow of energy. It's never unidirectional. It's always kind of what we produce as a group. And you know, maybe this will help us kind of, you know, move back to what was kind of normal, you know, for our class. You know, so alhamdulillah, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this. You know. So what's for next week? So I can get my notes out and begin to prep something, inshallah. So what's the first thing that we should take on?
I wouldn't mind starting with a discussion on women, just because we've talked about it before, so I think we may be building on some past ideas, but I'm open to anything.
Okay. No, I think women would be a great place to start. And you know, I love, you know, I'm often straddling two separate kind of feelings when it comes to topics like women. You know, on the one hand, I totally understand the necessity of representation. So people who feel like don't speak for women, pass the mic. You know, kind of what's the saying? Don't be a voice for the voiceless. Just pass the mic. Right? I get that. Whether we're talking in the context of race, or talking in the context of gender, we're talking in the context of class. I think it's important that people allow their voices to be heard. On the other hand, the mistake that we often make when we do that is, as opposed to these being issues of communal importance and relevance, they end up being treated as, you know, issues that are the issues of specific groups. And then people who, you know, have their kind of unique issues, the issues of, I guess, male African-American teachers of Islamic studies, those get presented as though they are general applicability, general relevance, general accessibility. and I think sometimes that produces a certain imbalance. So I think, yes, representation is important, but when we're talking about issues that are relevant to our whole community, the issue of race is not just a Black issue, but people treat it as though it's just a Black issue. It does a great disservice to that issue when people treat the issue of women as though it is just really a woman's issue. It's like only women should be granted license to talk about this. Even though I think sometimes that's done in a spirit of deference, like, well, I'll defer to women to talk about their own issues. The issue is relevant to me because I am in community with women. So as long as people are, see it in that way, and people are comfortable with me talking about it, I'm comfortable talking about it. But I don't want anyone to assume that I'm mansplaining or being I'm coming in and kind of giving the authoritative opinion on, just offering some perspectives, in as much as what is being discussed is relevant to me, and I do feel that it's relevant to me. We're talking about my sisters. We're talking in some instances about my mothers. We're talking in many instances about my colleagues, many instances about my neighbors, and understanding my attitude, or understanding what I deem to be ideal, or what I deem to be correct, in my attitude. I think it's important for me. I think it's important for other men. Just like we're talking about the issue of race, I think it's also important for non-Black people to have some concrete sense of what those issues mean to them. So as long as you guys are cool with that, I'm cool. But I just want to, in this climate, there's a lot of there are a lot of boundaries now. Things that, like, you can't talk about unless you are, and you have to check, I guess, certain boxes. So I don't know. I mean, what overall? I mean, what do you guys think about that?
I understand what you're saying, and I think that in this kind of world of identitarian politics, that everything has become a special interest issue. And I hear what you're saying, that it's a communal issue. And I also fully expect you to say things that will make, I'll speak for myself, that will make me feel very uncomfortable. And I welcome it, because I think that's the only way we can really have a deeper understanding of our theme and, grow. So I welcome the inevitably uncomfortable conversations that will come our way. I think that's kind of the point, though, because it's those kinds of conversations are not happening in other forums.
I agree. I think that it's it's funny because I feel like we're often in between wanting real conversation, but also being unwilling to risk the uncomfortability, as you mentioned, that will inevitably accompany real conversation. We want to have a real conversation, and we won't get anywhere as a community until we have a real conversation. So I'm thinking about, issues like race, issues like gender, until we have kind of a real conversation in which some of the politeness, there's actually a term for this in organizing, the great organizing guru, Saul Alinsky, he talked about how in issues of organizing, you have to dispense, you have to be willing to dispense with what he called middle class politeness. That, there is kind of an expectation that no matter what, things will always remain very, very polite and very, that whatever we talk about, we have to speak. And I don't think he was talking about edeb, like etiquette. Yes, whatever we talk about, we must talk about with full respect for one another. But I think he was talking about a kind of performative manners that doesn't allow for discomfort. And he said, one of the things about that is that people never really get a chance to talk about what they really think. We just kind of float around each other in this kind of very distant kind of, I don't want to step on anyone's toes kind of way. And nothing, the needle in terms of our feelings, our thoughts, our perspectives, the needle is never moved. We just kind of learn how to grin and just kind of understand, but we also learn how to kind of be cowed into silence and how not to say anything. And this is why, in my estimation, you see so much craziness on like the YouTube comment section, or places where people are able to speak with anonymity. When people are able to just kind of like speak what is really on their minds, you see craziness being said, right? And usually in the most vulgar, ridiculing way. And I do recognize that as kind of a discursive failure within our society, that if the only place you think you can actually speak freely is the YouTube comment section, or the World Star Hip Hop comment section, or some other, platform that guarantees your anonymity, it means that you haven't found a way of speaking publicly, and I think that's hugely problematic. In fact, I would even go as far as to say that's one of the reasons Trump won the 2016 election. I believe that you had a non-liberal minority, numerical minority, but a very vocal, very committed non-liberal segment of this country that never changed its views, on race, on gender, on social inequity, or anything like that. But I think learned that there was publicly no space for them to express their views. And education just doesn't happen like that. So, if we're going to do this, I think, as you mentioned, we have to expect that things might grow uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Actually, in Arabic, they say al-ihtikak yukhriju sayyi'at, that being rubbed sometimes in the wrong way. Being rubbed is what kind of brings to the surface those things that need to be challenged within all of us in order to grow. That you have to experience those things, that make you uncomfortable. That uncomfortability, for all of us, is kind of a necessary component of growth. And sometimes we don't experience growth because we're too enamored, with comfort. We don't want to hear anything that challenges, our cognitive framing of certain issues, and that makes conversation very difficult. I don't know. So okay, alhamdulillah. So that's where we will start next week, inshallah.
That sounds good. One kind of tactical question is, where should folks? Actually, no. You said just be prepared to talk about things, or do you say that also?
Yeah, I think just be prepared. I mean, if you look at an issue like women in Islam, which is even saying the issue like that, I think all of us if we know that there's something to talk about there, I think it's because we recognize that there's a great range of perspective with regard to those things. You know what I'm saying? There's a great range of perspective with regard to those things. And I think just coming to class, not prepared to argue, but just prepared to contribute. Just, I know that I have some very strong ideas, not strong in the sense of their worthiness, but strong in the sense that my conviction, things that I feel very strongly about with regard to that topic in particular. I would say just coming to class, prepared to discuss them, and prepared to direct us in the in the course of the conversation to certain references that you'd like us to consider. And I plan on doing the same, right? And I plan on doing the same. The other thing that I do recognize about that kind of discussion series, I guess, if you guys put it out there on the, Runda and Amina, I don't know if Amina's on, but I know Runda is on. If you guys announce this on the WhatsApp group, we'll just call it just real talk series, a real talk series. The other thing that I'm, wary of is that when you engage in that kind of plain talk about real stuff, not fluff, and it's almost impossible to talk about those issues with a kind of scholastic objectivity, distance, impartiality. It becomes very personal very quickly. People start thinking about experiences of their own. They start thinking about experiences of loved ones and things like that. So I would say be prepared to, and I think that all of that will kind of enhance our, okay, bismillah. Great idea, Rhonda. All of that will kind of enhance our perspective. I think that, Ismail, there's a very delicate balance. On the one hand, if we're going to converse about something publicly, what I present about the topic should be something that can be accessed publicly. If I have a feeling about it that is just my own, like there's a feeling I have about this, and you wouldn't understand it unless you were me. You wouldn't understand it unless you came from my background. That's fine. There's very many things that I feel like that about, but then I can't expect a person's opinion to be, or their perspective to be broadened by that, or that, the only thing that I would expect of that person is just to respect my right to hold my own opinion. Look, I hold my own opinion about it, and that's that. If, on the other hand, I want to offer the person with whom I'm speaking something that can grow their perspective or persuade them, but I have to do so on the basis of something more accessible than just my feelings about it. That's one side. On the other side, experiences, hearing about the experiences of other people, they might not change our kind of well-reasoned, perspectives on things, but they might give us new glimpses into certain things, So I can honestly say, already going there, right? I'm already there. Speaking to Muslims that identify as lesbian, gay, transgender, or bisexual, queer, when the conversation reached a place that, they were just sharing very real, very raw personal experiences, those personal experiences perhaps don't do much to grow or amend or change my position intellectually, but it does open me to great empathy for my brothers and my sisters, you know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Wow. I'm kind of giddy. I'm kind of giddy just thinking about next week and what because I know this is something you wanted to talk about for a very long time. I almost feel like you've been attending class all of these years just to get to this place. You know, mashallah.
Thank you for being receptive.
Alhamdulillah. No, and thank you for being, you know, brilliant. You know, I think it's a brilliant idea. Actually, it's something that I look forward to. I think it's a brilliant idea that we can talk about these things. I mean, I of course I run the risk of ruining my career, but to heck with it. No. I think we can only even consider something like that within this group because a lot of the people that have been attending this Monday session, we've been attending for a very long time. And I think we've grown in our trust, you know, of one another, you know, quite significantly. So I think that whereas with a group of strangers, this would be perilous. This would be a no-go. Like you just don't ever do this. I think within kind of the group of folks that we have that at least used to come down to DIC on Monday nights, I would be comfortable. And it's probably one of the, you know, to date, and this might sound a little sappy and sentimental, but I've been meeting with this group on Mondays longer than any other. This is the longest I've ever had any group with whom I've met consistently, ever, is Monday night. So, you know, it's for me as a teacher, and I never expected it to be. It's become kind of like sacred ground. It's like, you know, this is a special session for me. You know, I have sessions that I do with folks, communities that I'm not as well acquainted with, all over the country, and you know, I'm pretty guarded. You know, not always. I mean, I'm open, but you know, I avoid the minefields. I'm not going to, you know, make a knot that I only have 45 minutes to undo. And if I don't undo it successfully, people might come away with, you know, a bad opinion of a brother, you know, of me. That's not advisable. But you know, a group of folks that, you know, I've been meeting with for 4 years, almost 4 years, almost 5 years, consistently. I feel like we can have some of those conversations. I think so.
And I mean, worst case, if we say something that does end your career, that means more time for Star Wars.
But what money for the Netflix?
Right. We can sponsor a Disney Plus membership.
There you go. What money for the Amazon? So if it does end my career, then my severance gift is the Amazon Prime, so I can watch the Star Wars.
Inshallah, it doesn't come to that, but I
don't think it will. I don't think it will. I think, you know, I don't think it will. I think, and the other thing too, if we're going to be 100% honest, I think the fact that, you know, so many of us have, you know, met together on Mondays for as long as we have, I think it kind of indicates that there's a certain commonality that we clearly have. Because if we didn't have that commonality, we probably wouldn't have been meeting for as many years as we have been. So I think so that also kind of reduces the risk level. Like these are clearly there's some commonality of perspective that we share. I think it's safe to assume. I don't know, Ismail. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that. Hold on one second. Yes, son.
I guess.
Kid, what's up?
I guess. I want to say you like to call people.
Well, I'm on a call right now. Afterward, Kida,
But
afterward, inshallah. Give me a second. Afterward, I'll look at it afterward.
you like coffee.
Okay, Kida, afterward. I'll come down. Okay.
We go all over this house to see which person likes it. I
Okay.
see what you're saying. You like to call people.
Okay. Salam alaikum.
Don't even break this off.
Okay. I don't know. Those things just happen. But yeah, no. Inshallah, man, this should be really good, man. This should be really good. Any other ideas of in terms of how we could enhance the discussions?
I don't know if it's just a Zoom fatigue for people or what, because there has been, I mean, we had a really high number equivalent to what we used to have at DIC for the first few months. So I don't know if it's just the summer or if it's just they need a Zoom break. But I do think the real talk will be may bring back some people too. Or at least help
and also too, I think the other thing too that happens is, you know, I mean, if I'm being honest, if I'm being like just straight up about how I feel about kind of the new space of Islamic studies, I feel, you know, I mean, yeah, I think all of the teachers, all of those brothers and sisters are unique in certain ways. But I think with Zoom, I think all of this stuff, you know, it can become kind of a medley of very familiar tunes. You know what I'm saying? I think, you know, from, you know, it's just because, you know, whereas within live, you know, with in-person, you know, programs, you know, I had my sessions that I would attend, and they were I mean, in terms of what I could choose and what I would choose, it was, you know, probably limited to just what was available in my locality. Whereas now you can literally watch teacher speakers from all over the world every day at just the click of a button. I think that will almost necessarily lead to a kind of devaluation of kind of all of that, not just my class. I think all of it is cheapened in a way that it's just it's COVID-19. I think all of it is kind of like, you know, I mean, it's kind of like the Netflix effect. You know, oddly enough, you know, I'm old enough to remember both going to the movies and then waiting for a movie to come out on video, and then going to the movie store to rent a movie. Some of you are like, video rental? Just not Star Wars, right?
Blockbuster days.
the blockbuster days, the family video days. And I mean, depending on the popularity of the movie, you know, that retailer, that place, they would order, you know, X amount of copies. And if you didn't get there in time, they would be gone. Oh man, all of the Star Wars are gone. Man, gotta try to catch it next time. Yes, Hollywood Video, and yes, like, oh, I gotta try to catch it next time. Yes, your access was severely limited, and that was kind of the, you know, lamentable part, that I couldn't see some of the stuff I wanted to see. But your appreciation for the movie, I mean, watching a movie, that was a full-on event. My mother would pop us popcorn. We get pizza. We have soda. I call friends over. Hey, I have a copy of whatever the movie was. We're gonna watch this. It would be an entire event. Juxtaposed to now with Netflix, or I mean, we have. I mean, my wife is something of a, don't tell her I said this, but she's something of a film/television series buff. She, the series that she likes, she watches, the entire series and always has great commentary on the series. And, I learn a lot. But because of that, we have Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus. I have the whole, choosing a movie and watching it, it just doesn't, it's not the same event that it was for my children. It's not the same event that it was in my childhood. I mean, they have the Blockbuster store in their basement. That's where our television is. They have Blockbuster in their basement. In fact, I'm positive many more titles. In Blockbuster, you just have like a children's section, like one wall. They have probably 10 times as many titles that they have access to at the click of a button. I'm sure they don't think about watching movies at home the way that I did. I think there's a similar shift that I see occurring from in-person programming to Zoom programming. In-person programming is like, I gotta come down here, I gotta find a place to park. I get to see people that I don't see. There's a certain event that's bigger than just the teacher and the instruction. It's bigger than that. That's what I was describing. There was a whole thing with Hollywood Video, getting there on time, finding the video, getting the pizza, popping the popcorn, inviting the friends over. It was bigger than that. It was an entire event. Whereas now it's much more accessible, but also much less special. And I think that these Zoom sessions, I will say, I have no qualms about. This is much less special. It's much less special, and it's competing with a lot. So I'm not offended at all that the numbers have dwindled. I'm not. I'm not. I mean, I'd expect no different. In fact, it's just trying to keep up some momentum and trying to be a relevant part of people's week. We want to still try to do that. While DIC is offering the platform. But yeah, I'm not. I mean, I think this is just the byproduct of something switching from in person to online. So yeah, it's all good. I don't take offense at all. Some of my favorite teachers of my own, they have online sessions, and it's just hard for me to tune in. I just don't, I don't know. I just don't, it's just, I don't know. So I get it. I get it. I totally get it. Other ideas? Anyone else have anything? Asma, what did you think of the? I told you there was some parts that I did not recommend. There were some parts that I was concerned about. But on the whole, what did you think about the movie?
I liked it.
Yeah, there was some parts, but didn't Pacino give a really good performance in that though?
Excellent.
Yeah, that was quite a movie, man. That was quite a movie. Wow, when did you see it?
Like 2 years ago, right when you mentioned it.
Okay, that was quite a movie.
I couldn't find War of Roses, so I'm still looking for it.
Oh yeah, that's on Amazon Prime. War of the Roses.
Oh, okay, great, thanks.
That's on Amazon Prime. That's another one that some parts, but that's a movie that if you're married, happily married, you will watch War of the Roses and just laugh. You watch War of the Roses and just say, "Oh my God, this is so hilarious. If you have a troubled marriage, you might watch War of the Roses and say, well, man, we better get some help because we can't let it get like that. We better get some counseling because we can't let it get like that. But Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas, great performance in that movie, man. That was oh my God, that movie was funny. That movie was hilarious. That's actually one of my all-time faves in terms of comedy. That's a great comedy, man. That's the homework. Watch War of the Roses. That's a hilarious movie.
Oh, you better watch it.
Yeah, I'll ask you about it for next week too. That's a hilarious movie. Other thing, anyone have anything else? Okay, bismillah. So we'll be prepared for next week. The topic is women. I'm not dedicating a single session to it. Just gonna come in and I'm not speaking as an expert, certainly no expert on gender, but I do have some ideas about it from where I sit as someone that studied Islam, and I'd love to put those ideas before the group and just hear what people think, inshallah. So looking forward to that, inshallah. Maybe I'm really, as long as DIC is providing this Zoom, the numbers aren't really important to me. Honestly, alhamdulillah, I've had the great rush and sensation of speaking to thousands of people. And I've also had the great pleasure and enjoyment of speaking to 3 people in a live audience. So it doesn't really, alhamdulillah, it's not, it would never, if it were just me, you, Ranna, Ismail, Asra, it would never be regarded for me as a waste of my time. Never. If it were just me and Ismail, it wouldn't be regarded as a waste of my time. That's just, I love ideas. I love Islamic studies. I love Islam. I love this community. So you guys don't worry about trying to get people to just, this is something new that we're starting. If it interests people, alhamdulillah. If it interests people, alhamdulillah. So I look forward to it next week, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين.